This is SBR's Football Betting Daily.
What up, football fans? It is Friday, December 28th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, which means it is time for the Audible. My name is Jimmy the Bag, and I'm beside, as always, the legend, Donnie Rightside. I say as always, as I was in a windstorm, 100-mile-per-hour gusts, and lost power, and was not here on Friday, but Donnie has been on every single show all year. The consistency of a champion. Donnie, how are you, my friend? Did you have a nice Christmas?
I did have a really nice Christmas. Hope everything went well with your family. I know we were just joking around earlier about the windstorms out there, and sometimes it can be a blessing, Jimmy, not having the internet at all times and options forces you to spend some time with the family. But how quickly does time go? Week 17 already here, the final Audible show. It just seems like yesterday we're talking about the first 1, 2, 3, or 4 weeks of the season. Here we are all the way at the end. Hopefully the viewers out there got some knowledge from me and Jimmy. We're able to put some money in their pocket. But overall, the show has been a lot of fun. And, you know, I'll bet you we'll do it again next year as well, Jimmy.
Yes, absolutely. It has been extremely enjoyable working with you all week. What a messed up week I had with the no power in the windstorm. I don't know if you know, Donnie, my uncle, Gary Beeman, he was on our show, the Low Shack in the Bag show, on Thursday, and maybe we could get him in the mix if we keep doing this. He was the Heisman Award winner in '67, the year before O.J. Simpson.
Yes.
He gave his plays in for the playoff, the college football playoff. It was really fun having him on, and he enjoyed it very much. So hopefully we can get him more involved next year. My week got so messed up. It was just me having drinks with Gary, unable to focus on the capping. So what happened to me, Donnie, was after our Tuesday show, I had a great read on the week. I mean, you never really know until the games are over. So it wasn't like I was thinking, I'm having such a great read on the week. But I had a great read on the week. But because I didn't have enough time to continue, the over-analysis. I don't believe in over-analysis. Neither of us do it. Because I didn't have enough time to keep analyzing it. Because I didn't have the show on Friday, I only ended up giving 6 plays. I only made 6 bets. So a couple things screwed up. One, I got very uncomfortable with the market move in the total in the Panthers game. I got very uncomfortable with the market move, and that was not only one of my bets, but it was part of my parlay. In the end, I didn't have enough time to decide. I didn't even bet my parlay for the first time all year. Of course, that cashed at plus 677. Another thing was I only made 6 bets. I went 3-3 on them. I didn't even go out and make the Oakland bet on Monday. But of course, I go 5-0 and beat the prick. All of my leans cashed. Your call on the Cardinals team total under, Rams team total over, and Rams to cover was spectacular. So in the end, I have a 500 week, and I'm extremely upset. Actually, Rafa, why don't you put up my record for the season right now? It's a very important for us to be accountable and transparent with all our stuff. So it's still been a good enough year. And if you had offered me plus 7.8 units, 4.3% ROI, of course, I would have taken it. But God, did I leave money on the table. And now we have week 17, which is so difficult. So first off, was there anything that jumped out at you at week 16 before we talk about the complexities of week 17?
Just your normal run-of-the-mill stuff, and just was seeing how it was going to play out the following week. You know what the one interesting was is I was actually surprised, Jimmy, that the Chargers lost to Baltimore. It just shows you how tough that football team is. They couldn't have been in a worse spot in that environment. A must-win for technically both teams. Short work week, go out west, rookie quarterback, and end up with the victory. I was so impressed by that football game, and here they are now, because I wasn't surprised that the Pittsburgh Steelers ended up losing in the Dome to the New Orleans Saints, which due to your head coach basically throwing in the towel for you in that game. But now it brings up the Ravens win and in and a home playoff game. What a fun team to watch as we go along here, Jimmy, throughout the playoffs if they do get in.
Really fun team to watch. And in this situation this week, they're going Denzel Ward, concussion. Maybe you don't even need guys like Denzel Ward when you're playing against this Ravens squad, because it's almost as if the wideouts become useless. Yep. In saying all that, I don't mean to be negative towards what's going on there. I absolutely love not seeing Flacco in the pocket. We have a great group of cappers, and this is a very complicated week, very difficult week. Let me first give a shout out to Matt Lawrence, Sean Mick, Wayne Thompson, Joe Yurkovich, shaking back. Abba Zabba 78, Manny Davis, Big Dick Donnie joining us. Haven't seen Big Dick Donnie enough. Geghard A, Tasha Batista in the house. Nico, Tomarino, Tomor, Underdog, Justin Jones, Mooley 34, Kevin Carter. We have a great group. And Matt Mado, what a great group. Tomarino, Tomor, Al Hard, we are ready to go. And let me ask you this, Donnie. Do you do anything different for Week 17 in the NFL?
Yes. Because you have to see who's actually playing in these football games, and it's a lot different because usually during the season it's schemes and it's spot football. It's no longer spot football anymore because some teams just saying, "Hey, over here, we don't care. Come back to we don't care who wins this football game." And then other teams obviously are playing for playoff seeding, positioning, and want to end the year on a good note. So there are some of those games out there that are already showing you saying, the head football coach going, "We really want to play hard in this football game." Behind the scenes going, "We really don't. We really don't." So keep your eye on that. And we're going to go through every single game today, and we'll pick out those games where the coaches are telling you shit that doesn't even matter right now. And we're going to see right through it, just like this, Jimmy.
I love it. And another thing, Donnie, that's going on is I do a parlay show each week. And I'm now up. My ROI, one parlay a week for the NFL season, my ROI is at 44%. And now we're coming into I can't believe it. Like I almost don't want to talk about it. But I didn't, so I had to do the parlay video yesterday. I said, no, I can't do it. I need to talk to Donnie about Week 17. Then they schedule it for before this show. And I was like, you know what? I can't do it. I need to talk to Donnie about Week 17. I'm winning in this part. I got to talk to Donnie. So now I made a deal. Sophia, help me out. Now I'm going to do a live version of it after this show. And Donnie, just to give you an idea of how important it is working with you and what a big part of my success is working with you, that I said, no, I will not shoot this last video until I've talked to Mr. Donnie Rightside. I am ready to get to work. Are you ready to get to work, my friend?
I'm ready, man. Let's have a great finale. Let's do it.
Sweet. And we do have Whale Capper joining us in a little bit, which I'm very excited about. Let's start with Cowboys at Giants. Now, I will be using openers from Bet Online. Those of you who watch this show often know what that's all about for me. I just really have a ton of respect for how Bet Online is the first to the market. We had a bit of an argument, Peter and I, about the importance of Bet Online. He thinks that it's more important to see the market moves once the market is established. I'd be actually curious to hear what you think. I just love, it's so important to me to hear who has the balls to be first to the market, and then what is the movement from that spot. Well, actually, what do you think about that, Donnie? I know we have a ton to get through, but what do you think about that idea? Peter was saying he thought it's much more important to see the moves once the market's been established.
Yeah, it depends on what your strengths are, because sometimes in the NFL, there's a lot of times where you see the numbers come out early in the week, whether it's an over, under, or a side, and without who's actually playing in the football game. I mean, technically, you know who's going to play in the football game, but without it, you say, you know what? That line is at 6.5. There's no doubt in my mind it's going to 7. I should just play the 6.5 because there's value on that. There is something to be said about that when you can jump the early lines. And sometimes, if you know going in exactly what you're looking for, it's a great way to do it. But I like Peter's strategy as well, because I tell you all the time, Jimmy, I like to be a procrastinator, because at the end, I don't want to be the guy that gets in and then all of a sudden Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, you see some ridiculous injury reports come out that you never knew these guys were injured on Sunday or pulled a hamstring Wednesday. But sometimes there is availability to beat the opening line, and there's something to be said about getting the best number on the football game. We can agree on that.
Absolutely. We're looking for it. Why don't we let Tomor lead us into this game here? He says Cowboys have a lot of injuries. Giants want to finish the season strong. Manning wants to show he can still play. Nico says, I love Giants plus 6.5. Cowboys will run the clock and play no one. Open Giants.
Can we get his bookie, Jimmy? Can we get Nico's bookie on there with the Giants plus 6.5? Can we get his bookie?
Yeah. Actually, that's a good call. But Heritage is hanging a 6.5, I believe. At least as of last night late. Hanging at 6.5. Open Giants minus 6. Total open at 42.5. Now a mix of 41.5 and 41. So Jason Garrett, we've been in this situation before. He insists anybody who is healthy and ready to play is going to play. But the Cowboys were in the same situation in 2016. Garrett said the same thing. Elliott dressed but didn't play. Prescott and Bryant played a handful of series. No Cowboys player should be trusted really to play at this point. Beckham remains sidelined Wednesday at practice. He hasn't been officially ruled out that I know of, but he's unlikely to play. Donnie, Cowboys at Giants. These are tricky games. I am not sure what to do. And do you have any angle or plan early?
Yeah, I think this is one of those games where the Dallas Cowboys say all the right things early in the week, and they did, and their owner did, Jerry Jones, and so did Jason Garrett, but it's just to get your football team in a mindset, because it's still a work week for you. And counter to what everybody believes, it's not college football, Jimmy, where we can say, all second stringers get to play football. You can't do that in the NFL. You can't bench every starter because there's not enough people on your team that are activated on Sundays in order to do that. But you can bench the quarterback, you can bench the running back, you can bench your 2 tackles, your 2 big, linemen, and a linebacker or 2, maybe a cornerback or 2. You can do that to soften the blow to make sure that nobody gets injured. But this is a clear indication, one of these games. I think Jason Garrett's going to play it by ear. And what I mean by that is, if the Dallas Cowboys take the field to start, and we've seen it all the time, especially in Week 17 games, Dallas Cowboys take the opening drive, go down the field goal, punch in, 6 plays, 71 yards, covers 3.5 minutes, and they score a touchdown. The starters probably won't see the rest of that football game, or at least the key starters. But if you're going into the game and you go 3 and out on your first 2 drives, he might say, all right, let's play these starters right through to the half. Let's end this on a good note. So if you're looking from a betting standpoint, the Dallas Cowboys don't care where this game ends up. And what I mean by that is score-wise. The Giants haven't shown any propensity to give up on the season. Odell Beckham hasn't played in a couple weeks, so I sort of get a chuckle when I see Odell Beckham's out and the line goes from 6 to 5.5. Like, there's actually people out there that were waiting to see if Odell Beckham was going to play in this meaningless football game after skipping the past couple weeks. But just taking a look at this game, I actually like, and I took earlier in the week on the roundtable as one of my plays of the week, getting 3.5 for the Dallas Cowboys in the first half. Because, yes, they will play starters, but they're not playing their starters the whole game. So it's one of those that if you like the full game, it's probably best to go with the New York Giants because you're going to be going up against second-string players for the majority of the second half. But I do think Dallas is going to put forward an honest effort, Jimmy, to get those good vibes going towards the playoffs and probably play a decent first half enough to cover that number, or may even be leading at the half.
Wow, that's interesting. Liking the Cowboys early. That surprises me. Now, let me ask you this, Donnie. Let's say during the year, 100% of your plays, what do you cut on Week 17? What's your general Week 17? Do you make a third of the plays you've been generally making, or do you just let the schedule dictate what you do?
No, I like the schedule dictate because sometimes it's a lot easier. There's a couple games, and not as many as we had last year or the year before, where you had some clear-cut games where you knew teams were benching starters and the other team wasn't playing for anything. And, case in point, last year you saw the Los Angeles Rams, I believe, open up like a -3.5 in the same game. Same teams, 2 teams playing versus the San Francisco 49ers. But you knew nobody in the Rams was going to play in that football game, and they didn't. And Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers were hot. As opposed to getting 3.5 in that game, Jimmy, they closed -3.5 and won that game fairly easily. So there are some tea lead games, but I take the same approach as I do every week. It's just the interesting part of Week 17, Jimmy, is teams actually tip their hands. We're not going to play this guy, as opposed to waiting for inactives or, maybe he's a decoy this week. If you're not ready to play and the game doesn't mean as much, they're just going to sit you down because you're a big investment to that football team, whether you're playing in the playoffs or even for next year. You see teams saying, you know what, I'm not going to risk one of my good young players. Let's let him get a healthy offseason and work forward from there.
Everybody seems to be on the Giants here, Donnie. Jeremy Miller liking Giants plus 6.5. We know Nick O is on it. Sacktown King on it. Justin Jones says, I'm a through and through Dallas fan, but I'm on the Giants plus the points. I don't care what the number is. Very interesting stuff. Let's keep rolling along. Now we have Panthers at Saints. Oh, Justin Jones saying the bag. You a legit San Francisco fan? Yes, I am. My whole mom's side of the family grew up in San Francisco, so my first connection with NFL football was all through the 49ers. And then being so close to Seattle, I became a big Steve Largent and Dave Craig fan when I could understand that you can choose which teams to like. And when I tell people I like both teams, they stop talking to me because they're in the same division. Let's keep rolling right along. We have Panthers at Saints. Very interesting spot. Teddy Bridgewater will be getting the start for the Saints versus the Panthers. Open Saints -7.5. Now mostly -7s. Still a couple 7.5s. Total opened at 44.5. Now a mix of 44s and 43.5s. Backup quarterbacks. Ton of volatility. Donnie, what are you thinking here? Panthers 1-6 on the road this year. At the Saints, 6-1 at home.
Yeah, this is an interesting game because when you say, Drew Brees is out, obviously he's not going to start the football game. He's not even going to play, and he shouldn't play. They have everything wrapped up. He's your key to your Super Bowl run. But it's not like you're putting in some bum behind him. Like, Teddy Bridgewater has a lot of starts out there. He's going to be able to run an effective offense, and Sean Payton is out here free rolling with him anyway. He's probably not coming back next year. You want to see what he has. You want to see if you can run your offense. The only problem with that is you're going to be down 3 starters on the offensive line because you're going to get them rested up and ready for the playoff run. What are you going to actually do with defense? You're going to put your pass rushers out there, the Cam Jordans of the world. They're not going to play in this football game, and neither should they, nor their starting cornerbacks. But how much do the Carolina Panthers have left in them at this point? You're going with basically a third, fourth string type quarterback on the road. Are you going to say, you know what? Let's go out here and let's give Christian McCaffrey on turf another 35 touches in a meaningless game when he had a sensational season and you know what to get from him looking forward. Luke Kuechly out there, he's a wild man. You're going to let him play the entire football game knowing that he's one concussion away probably from ending his career. You're going to want the MVP of your defense doing that. There's not a lot to love in this football game or try to break down. And it's not even say, well, the Saints are out of it, so I'm just going to take the points with the Carolina Panthers. Do you trust their quarterback that even against second stringers on defense can even be effective and move the football? I actually don't. So, I mean, we have to give opinions most of the time on both of these games. If I can get 7, I'm probably still going to take the New Orleans Saints in this spot because I think Teddy Bridgewater will play well and play effectively here.
I'm excited, very excited to see Teddy Bridgewater play. I apologize. I screwed up with, I have been lacking sleep since my 24-hour travel to Costa Rica. I guess yesterday or within the last 48 hours. I guess I was saying Giants plus. Yes, it's Giants -6. Giants are favored in this spot. My fault. That's a terrible hosting job by me, and I apologize for that. Yes, I'm excited, very excited to see Bridgewater roll. What do you feel about this total, 43.5 now?
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's just hard to get a gauge on what you're actually going to get. But if you have Teddy Bridgewater in New Orleans offense, they're going to still dial it up. They're not going to have Michael Thomas out there. They're not going to have Alvin Kamara or Ingram. But they still should be able to move the football. And it's one of those games where if it's 4th and 1, Jimmy, on your own 45, why are we punting here in this game? Let's just have some fun and free roll it out there. So if you get a big play, it's great. Even if you stop them, the other team's going in. It's in a dome. It's the last game of the year. Not much on the line. 42. 42 showing up at Chris. I might actually lean towards the over in this game, even though you don't have starters in.
Interesting. It feels like the more we talk about it, the more uncomfortable I'm getting with these spots. Let's move on to Jets at Patriots. New England's locked up the AFC East title. Open Patriots -14, now -13.5 across the board. Total opened at 47.5. Now a couple of 45s, mostly 44.5. Now, if the Chiefs and Chargers both lose, which is it's very unlikely, let me just say that, and the Patriots win, they'll get the top seed in the AFC. We're also dealing with the news that Josh Gordon is no longer a part of the New England Patriots. This is too big of a spread to me. I don't see why the Patriots could actually have faith in the Chiefs and Chargers losing. This is a ton of points, Donnie. You think this is too many points?
I do think it's a lot of points. And last week I did get burned by the New England Patriots. Got a nice line on it. -12.5, -114. Was sitting in prime position. They were beating the heck out of the Buffalo Bills, who is a really good defense and running the ball at will. But, hey, look, Buffalo is playing everything down to the wire, calling timeouts down 18 with 3 minutes to go. And they end up getting the backdoor cover in that football game. So do you want to try to step in that type of environment again if you're going to look at the Jets? Because to me, Jimmy, the Jets, even though they are banged up, no Quincy and none won this football game, a couple other guys, you still got Robbie Anderson. Can you come through the back door getting 2 touchdowns? So my question is, it's almost like saying, why don't we try to roll reverse here and see what went wrong last week with the New England Patriots? Up 14-0 at the half, easily covered. I think you might be in line for one of those because what we did see is they need a break, New England. They're an older football team. Tom Brady got pulled with like 5.5 minutes to go in a game, which you never would have seen that, a couple years ago. He would play it right out to the string, but they're putting guys on the bench. So I think it's another one of those efforts that if you're leaning towards the New England Patriots, let them get their business done early in this football game, 21-10, 17-3, something like that at the half. I can certainly see that, but it's been pretty apparent that once they have this game wrapped up, everybody's going to the sideline, and they're good enough, the New York Jets, on offense to move the football and score because you can run on the New York Jets, and that's what New England is now ramping up to do as the new playoff profile. In this football game, I would be looking to bet the New England Patriots in the first half. Full game, I think you might see almost a carbon copy of the Jets have the football down 20, and will they score with like 4 minutes to go?
Yeah, I think that's a really nice breakdown. Patriots early, Jets full game. I like that quite a bit. We have a lot of people backing the Jets here. Underdog says Jets. Tasha Mayhew says won't cover. Shake and Bake says Jets +13. Tomar says the value of the Pats in these games with big spreads is the half, just like Donnie was saying. Pats are desperate for the number 2 seed. Their defense allows backdoor covers. Nico liking the Jets as well. Very, very interesting stuff. And Tasha Batista said, don't forget the line is that high because if Pats lose and Texas win, Texans win, then the Pats lose the number 2 seed. Thank you for adding that in, Tasha Batista.
Yep.
Very interesting stuff. And what effect do you think no Josh Gordon moving forward will have on the Patriots?
I just think they're going to be focused on running the football. And you saw them do it last week. I think they ran the ball, Jimmy, 47 times last week and really pounded Buffalo in. But I think they can lean on that big, good offensive line that they have. Tom Brady to pick his spots now as opposed to saying, hey, I'm more than happy to throw the ball 45 times. That's not the way they're going to be effective. Rob Gronkowski, a shell of his former self. You lose your deep weapon in Josh Gordon. Now you're more of, let's play ahead of the stick. So from familiar terms, that means let's get in 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5 or less each and every time. So let's lean on the running game. I think they're going to ramp it up again this week. And I think you're going to see that as an MO in the playoffs where they're going to play physical football for the New England Patriots.
I like it, Armin. My man Armin says Pats don't cover but do win.
Mm-hmm.
I like that spot. You have any feel on this total? Do you understand why it's been dropping?
I think the MO is there, Jimmy. You know, you saw last week where they didn't feel like throwing the ball all over the place. They said, let's get big, physical, nasty, and I think they're going to do the same thing again. They have a very good defense, New England Patriots. They're going to lean on that. And what are you going to get out of the New York Jets in a last game type situation where a lot of the guys are going on injury reserve and not playing in this football game? Still playing hard for Todd Bowles, as you saw versus the Houston Texans, but not a lot of, hey, let's go in here and really beat the Patriots. There's not a lot of that going on. They're professionals. They know they're better off staying healthy and heading into the offseason here. But look, that's a really low over-under, and I think Sam Darnold's going to go back there and sling it around. It's a low number. So, I would lean on the over just because it's 45.5, and the Jets don't have as good a defense as the Buffalo Bills and a better offense, technically, than the Buffalo Bills. So I would lean over here.
Yeah, I like your breakdown quite a bit on this game. Audrey Melvin says, I'm tired of losing money because winning teams can't cover the spread. I'm taking the points and more points this week. This is a tricky week. Tricky week to make up for losses earlier in the season. I'm definitely going to tread with caution. And as I said, I wouldn't do the parlay video before talking with Donnie. Now let's talk Lions at Packers. Packers have looked good at home all year, 5-1-1. The Lions have looked bad under Patricia all season long, 2-5 on the road. Open Packers -7. Money coming in on the Packers now, a couple -7.5s, mostly -8. Total opened at 44. It's pretty much stayed there. It's moved up about a half point right now. Still a couple of 44s, but you can get 44.5s. Lot of talk about who's in and who's out. It was difficult to get enough information before I got here on the show. Donnie, do you have any new information on Lions at Packers and specifically the Packers here? And do you think Stafford plays a full game? And what are we talking here, Lions at Packers, Donnie?
Yeah, Matthew Stafford seems to be that, indestructible object who's one of those guys that says, look, even though we stink, you guys pay me a lot of money. I owe it to you to give my best efforts, even though my back is hurting. We're a bad football team. We're down a lot of weapons. But I want to show you that I ride or die for Detroit. And there's something to be said about that. But going into this game, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have a good football game. He had a good game last week. They showed me a lot, the Packers, last week. In a meaningless football game, down double digits versus the New York Jets, to actually come back and win that game and get the win and cover in overtime versus the New York Jets. Now you're coming home. It doesn't mean that much for both of these football teams. It's a division game. Do I think Green Bay just wants to go out and just run the score up? I don't think so. So in this environment, if you're going to give me 8 points like it is at Chris, I'll lean on the points in this because I don't see where the effort is for both of these football teams either to get blown out or feel the need to blow the other football team out. They know each other, the division rivals. As long as Stafford is able to stay upright, again, against a pretty bad defense with the Green Bay Packers, I'll lean on the points in this spot. I don't have a great feel for it because it's a meaningless game, but I don't really want to lay with the Packers -8.
I agree, but Rodgers had such a disappointing season. Who cares about not throwing an interception for the amount of passes, the record that he caused? Who cares about that? He has not looked good, and he probably wants to put on a bit of a show for the hometown fans. But 8 points seems like a lot in a meaningless game. Brandon Lugo saying even Golladay is questionable. Matt Meadow saying late cover for me with Green Bay last week. Nail biter. Yeah, you got very fortunate there. I was shocked to see them come back. Nico says Packers have more pride. Von Polo says, will you guys do this show for the playoffs? The answer is yes, Von Polo. I need the money. That's why we're going to be doing it. It was offered. They were like, it could just be for the regular season. I said, no, I want to work with Donnie throughout the playoffs. So yes, we are going to be hammering these shows, and we are going to be over-analyzing things because we do not believe that there's paralysis by over-analysis. I can't wait to break down the playoff games with Donnie and with Whale Capper. This game, it makes me feel, I hate saying tricky over and over again. I hate saying uncomfortable over and over again, but this is one of them. 8 points on a meaningless game. Nico saying Lions average under 15 points the last 4 games. That was one of my picks on the parlay last week, was the Lions team total under. You helped me get to that spot. Yeah, I'm going to probably stay off this Lions at Packers. Let's move on to Jaguars at Texans. Open Texans minus 8.5. Now minus 6.5 across the board. Total open at 40.5. Pinnacle still hanging at 40.5. Now mostly 40s. Houston has already clinched a playoff berth, but their seeding could range anywhere from the number 1 seed in the AFC to the 6th seed. All they can do now is take care of the Jaguars, who will be starting Blake Bortles. And Donnie, we've been asking for this for quite a while now. I have a sneaking suspicion that Bortles can play okay here. Want to hear your breakdown? Jaguars 2-5 on the road against the Texans, 5-2 at home. Jaguars at Texans, Donnie.
Yeah, I'll tell you what was interesting about that is you saw Blake Bortles come into the game, Blake Bortles going to be the starter, which really rose my eyebrow, and I liked it right away because now they're actually going to have a semblance of an offense with maybe a forward passing game and a guy that can move around. But the only reason why Blake Bortles is actually playing this football game is because Cody Kessler would have got killed this week. Cody Kessler can't move around, and they're coming up against a hellacious pass rush with a sketchy offensive line. So they actually did him a service by benching him and saying, you know, your wife and kid are going to be collecting Social Security checks if I let you play this week. So at least we're going to run Blake Bortles out there where if he gets killed, he's not even going to be part of our franchise anymore, but he is the better overall quarterback. They can run an offense. They're having a semblance of an offense. Leonard Fournette probably going to miss this football game. Carlos Hyde actually added to the injury report today, which isn't good news for the Jacksonville Jaguars, but you still should be able to get around. But you have a valid passing game, something that you haven't had for the last month. And we joked about it every time we came on the Audible and said, something just stinks in Jacksonville. You're deliberately losing and running your offense into the ground and pissing off your defense at the same time. And for what? You should have just let Blake Bortles play out the string, see if you had anything. Maybe you could trade him or, you know, who knows? Maybe he'd be a part of your future. You don't know. But the worst thing in the world was to put Kessler in football games. But now you're going on the road. Houston in a must-win situation, but I think the number's about right. Before Blake Bortles was in, Jimmy, you were seeing like 8.5s and 9s out there. Once he was now named the starter, you quickly went back to 6.5s. If you watch the last game with the Houston Texans versus the Philadelphia Eagles, they really got injured in that football game. I mean, you lose Demaryius Thomas. Kiki Kuti should come back in this game, but he's questionable, which means with a hamstring injury, that could go at any time. So you just lean on DeAndre Hopkins, which is a great wide receiver. But on the opposite side, you got Jalen Ramsey out there to try to slow him down. So they match up really well. A fast, athletic defense to go up against a fast, athletic quarterback. Should be a pretty good chess match. I think Houston wins this football game, Jimmy, seals up that division title and go into the playoffs. But I think they're in for a fight this week, and I think Jacksonville's going to come to play and just by default hang around in this game late.
I agree. I think that's a nice read. I'm looking forward to see Bortles get another shot. It's been pretty sad after the run through the playoffs last year to see him break down. I was very hard on him last year, and this year I felt more pity than anything else. Because this is a Jags team that we had high expectations for, obviously, this year. Mark Jones says, I think Jacksonville gives up. Tom Marino says, I'd bet Jags if I can bet 7.5. Public will be on Houston. The line should go back up. Very interesting thought there. Tomore says, good spot for Bortles against a bad secondary. No pressure. He says, Bortles starting after the late comeback last week. Jags have some momentum. Idling Jags. Jags will play hard, and Houston's secondary is bad. Tasha Mayhew liking Houston money line with the under 40. That's an interesting spot. Donnie, what are you thinking about this total? I haven't seen much movement on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, 40 is a tough one here because you're hoping, I mean, you're probably, even the best part about this, if you get bad Blake Bortles on the road, which you're probably going to get, that's still light years better than what you're getting out of Kessler. How amazing does that sound? If you get a bad game out of Blake Bortles, that's still better than a good game out of Cody Kessler. That's where we're going to have to factor in, but 40 points is really low in this game. But styles do make fights here because both of these teams have hellacious pass rushes and not much on the offensive line. But if you're looking for maybe a silver lining saying, well, how can Jacksonville do something? Blake Bortles is going to be able to escape some pressure. Blake Bortles at least has a viable arm, and you're going against a really banged-up secondary that if you take a look last week, just in that game alone, I mean, Kareem Jackson looks like he's going to go this week, but Kayvon Webster, another key ingredient in that secondary, he's gone and out on IR. And then you have Jonathan Joseph, who's questionable for this football game with injury. You still might be down after the first quarter, your top 3 corners again going into this game. Houston got really banged up at the wrong time here, Jimmy. And number is right. I mean, Tom Marino says it right there. If you can get 7.5 or more than a touchdown, I think it's valid because I'm not too sure Houston has even the ability to run away with the football game at this point, Jimmy.
Yeah, I don't know if they do either. Tasha Mayhew giving us a final score of 24-13 Texans. That's Texans cover. And then Nico says Texans 27-17. But Shaken Back says Texans will win, but don't cover. I'm excited to see Bortles have another chance. I hate watching these guys sort of fall apart so publicly. I expect them to play well here in this meaningless game for the Jags. I like it. And shining through. Look at that sunshine on the ocean. Man, does Whale Capper keep stepping it up. Whale Capper, what a treat. Thank you so much for joining us. How you doing, my man? Hope you had a wonderful Christmas.
I certainly did, and missed you guys. Hope you guys had a wonderful Christmas as well. Great to be back. This is like maybe one of the most picture-perfect Southern California days that I can remember. This time of year, it gets just, you get these where it's just 60 degrees, 65 degrees. The surf is up. There's people out here in San Clemente catching some nice waves. This is as good as it gets. So happy to be talking football, though. That's for damn sure.
Absolutely. We've started with a few games. We've talked Cowboys, Giants, Panthers, Saints, Jets, Patriots, Lions, Packers, and just finished Jaguars, Texans. Is there anything you're liking out of those games before we move forward?
A lot of coin flips there.
We got through the junk games, Whale Capper. We got through all the junk games before you came in, so thank us.
Get your luckiest coin out. Get your luckiest coin out and flip it if you're going to bet those games. I'll tell you. Maybe the only angle I have is I kind of like the Jags as a dog. They seem to have a spoiler mindset kind of ingrained in them. They have the Tom Coughlin play to the whistle. We're playing to the end of this game. Blake Bortles, I was kind of impressed, I guess, with the way that the offense kind of responded to Bortles coming back against the Dolphins last week. They could be frisky here. I'm probably going to look at maybe a Jags team total over because it's going to be in the 16-ish range. I think they can get there against the Houston defense that has issues in the secondary, especially. If I feel like I whiffed not getting Jacksonville plus 8.5, and you haven't seen the same line movement on the total that you saw with Jags crossing some key numbers there. So there's got to be something available to find that same angle on this total or the team total or something like that. So I'm hopeful that we see like a 16.5 or a 17 for a Jags team total. I can get it over there because I think they're going to compete. They're going to play hard. They're going to score some points and maybe even some defensive points because they can definitely get after it, and their secondary is pretty outstanding. They can cover well and turn over the ball. So should be an interesting look on the Jags.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm looking forward to watch Bortles in action. Now that the family is back together, let's go to Falcons at Buccaneers. It took me a long time to pronounce it right. Thank you for all your leadership. Opened at a pick'em. Now Falcons -1 or -1.5. Total open at 49.5. Now 51 or 51.5. Deshaun Jackson doubtful for Week 17. He's already said he doesn't want to play in Tampa next year. Tevin Coleman didn't practice on Wednesday. Devonta Freeman, Ito Smith on injured reserve. Coleman potentially sitting. So now we come to four-string running back Brian Hill. Also, it's been said that Ryan Griffin will be getting some snaps at quarterback, which is very interesting. Both he and Jameis Winston will likely receive playing time in Week 17. Whale Capper, why don't we start off with you? Falcons at Buccaneers. You see any edge or angle here?
Yeah, I think the Buccaneers ought to be favored in this spot. I'm not sure why the line movement has been going in the direction of the Falcons. I think there's a lot more people playing for jobs and playing for opportunities next season on the Tampa Bay side of things than we're seeing on the Atlanta side of things. On top of that, Tampa Bay's defense has been mildly impressive compared to how they looked in the first half of the season over the second half of the season. I think they've come together pretty well and done a pretty nice job of definitely done a better job of picking up their tackling and their ability to cover down the field. So I think Tampa Bay's live in this one. The only thing that concerns me a little bit is that they really can't afford a Jameis Winston injury here. So they may not be playing till the final whistle. Like if this is a little bit out of hand at any point in the game, you could see Jameis get the hook because they want to keep him from getting an injury that would then trigger them to be on the hook for him for his 5th year, because I think they want to go into this offseason with a lot more flexibility with what to do with their roster going forward. And I mean, Tampa Bay is in one of the toughest situations in terms of what do you do now. I think you got to move on from Dirk Cutter. Clearly, he's not the long-term answer there. I like what they've got with Todd Monken as an offensive coordinator. Can you find somebody that complements him as a head coach and keep him on board as an offensive coordinator? That's worth a shot. But they got a lot of roster rebuilding to do there. They're weak in a lot of important places for today's NFL, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So, I'd look, slightly in Tampa Bay here. I feel like they should be, a 1.5 point favorite, not a 1.5 point dog. So that's about all I got.
Interesting. You have any feel on this total being bet up from 49.5 to 51 or 51.5?
I would say that's the wrong direction. I feel like this is going to be kind of a cagey game like we saw with Atlanta, Carolina last week. Maybe there's some points early. Maybe if you like an over, look for a first half over. But this game actually sets up pretty well where I think things are going to wind down and slow to a grinding halt in the second half. And I'm going to be looking for a lot of second half unders this week. This, for whatever reason, week 17, the coaches get their guys fired. It doesn't matter if you're eliminated or not. Coaches get their guys fired up before the start of the game. It's still an NFL football game. They get these guys, raring to go, run them out there on the field, and they're playing their hardest. But if you're down at halftime, if you're on the road, it's tough to get them equally fired up to come out and play hard in the second half. A lot of the kind of, I feel like a lot of the, if you're on the road and if you're down at half, it's kind of, okay, well, let's not get anyone hurt. People are making business decisions about tackles and, getting that extra yard, a lot of run, punt. So, I think second half unders are going to be something to look forward to in some of these games where the home team is running away with it at halftime.
I think that's a great call on second half unders. And I'm happy to hear that you didn't quite understand the total market movement because it was perplexing to me. Donnie Rightside, Falcons. My fault. Falcons, 2-5 on the road at Bucks. Donnie, what are you thinking here?
It should be. I think the line movement had a lot to do with people are still concerned about Julio Jones not playing in this football game and why should he play. But there's a lot to play for Julio Jones. I believe he has a 100-yard advantage over the next leading wide receiver, who I believe is DeAndre Hopkins. So he's going to play in this football game to sort of cement that, which is good if you want the Atlanta Falcons and you want the over. Matt Ryan's going to play it right down to the bell. Nobody's coming in for him. I think people get a little bit leery, and I did as well when I start hearing like Dirk Cutter, who it's an interesting dichotomy down there in Tampa Bay because the team that actually should have been selling off, everybody went into self-preservation mode, didn't make any trades and said, maybe we can convince the Glazers, who are absentee owners, just to look at the final, look, we beat Atlanta to end the season, and we won this amount of games with all the problems we had. And that's an issue because you're not looking out for the future health of the franchise as opposed to what's going on now. And then also Dirk Cutter coming out saying, you know what? Jameis is our quarterback, but our third string quarterback, he's been here a while. It's like it's peewee football. Like he deserves to play a little bit. That's alarming because if you're in one of those games and you have the over and it's, 21-21 in the fourth quarter, you're leaning on Tampa Bay and they go, hey, let's let Ryan Griffin out there have this last drive to see what he can do. Like, no. I want Jameis Winston out there. So there's a little bit of a flip-flop here late in the game if Dirk Cutter's going to hold up and say, he's a really good boy over here and he deserves to play some snaps because he never gets in. That's a real tough quandary to be put in there. So I'll be off this game either way because if it comes down to I need some points or I need the win and we just want to see how this young kid who never gets to play, I don't like that scenario.
Yeah, I don't like it either. I asked many people when I was home in Canada what the name of the Atlanta franchise was, and I got Falcons from everybody. All right? Falcons. Okay.
North of the border.
Let's keep rolling right along here. I like your guys' breakdown. I agree, but there's just so much volatility. You have a play, like Donnie's saying, you have a play on the Bucks. You're looking good. And here comes Ryan Griffin because he's got a good attitude in the locker room.
Yeah,
it's just, how do you make a bet? How do you put enough money on the? It's very, very difficult this week 17. Let's move on to Dolphins at Bills. Open Bills minus 3.5. Now a mix of minus 4.5 and minus 5s. Total open at 38. Now mostly 39.5 and a couple 40s. While many people were speculating what was going to happen to Tannehill, we have found out the Dolphins are moving on. The $19 million he's owed over the next 2 weeks is not guaranteed. Tannehill is looking like he's moving on. Xavier Howard remained limited at Wednesday's practice. It's probably a good sign of his chances for playing, but Adam Gase continually is saying that it's a meniscus injury, and until he's completely pain-free, we're not going to pull him out there. I can understand the market move towards the Bills, and I can also understand the market move creeping upwards now at 39.5 and a couple 40s. Donnie Rightside, Dolphins 1-6 on the road in possibly Tannehill's last game, or likely Tannehill's last game at the Bills. What are you thinking here, Donnie?
Yeah, you got a banged up Tannehill, hurt shoulder, bum ankle, and then also you get the reports. You wake up and have your morning coffee and say, hey, by the way, Tannehill's not in our plans next year. But you're still going to run him out in cold Buffalo in a game that means nothing. So, hey, go out there and be a crash test dummy, because no matter what happens, you're not going to be playing football for us next year. But the interesting move here is I think Buffalo wins this football game, yes. But we're getting into that quandary again. It's like, well, what is a Buffalo win going to be? Are they getting points? Are we a pick 'em where they just need to win, or is it minus 1.5 so they can win by less than a field goal? You have a surge now, Jim. I know we always like to look at BetOnline. BetOnline is showing a -6 for the Buffalo Bills. But when you look at just the outlet of the game, and forget about X's and O's, you have a team that plays in paradise. It's probably 80 degrees today in Miami. And they're going on the road, and there's a lot. Week 17 is right, Will Capper says. Business decisions are to be made. They're going to get off that plane in Buffalo and feel that wind chill and go, what the hell am I even doing here? I just don't want to get hurt on this turf in this high school stadium, and I want to make it to the offseason, and I have a party scheduled for right after the holiday where I want to get to and get home as quick as I can. There's no reason for the Miami Dolphins to be playing in this football game. But Buffalo does win this game, but can they cover by a touchdown? But I don't know which Miami team actually shows up here, because all the wrong signals would be sending out there to Ryan Tannehill and that whole football team. It's Buffalo or nobody, but I don't know if I'm ready to ride with Buffalo where they have to win by a touchdown.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable with it at all. And you understand the market move creeping up, the total, I mean?
I do. No, I agree with it, because there we go again, Jimmy, the 39s with the Buffalo Bills out there. We should be able to get that. And look, what is left for Miami other than the slinging around? Even like Devontae Parker. You need weapons and wide receivers on this team. They're actually going to bench Devontae Parker, because if he gets hurt in this game, it costs him like $7 million against the cap next year. Business decisions all over the place for the Dolphins, whether you're healthy or not. It's crazy.
I hear that. And Jonesy says Miami cannot play in Buffalo with the weather. Backing your call there, Donnie. Whale Capper, what are you thinking here? Dolphins at Bills.
When you look down the card this week, this was the easiest one to cross off. Just because it was the least likely to have any kind of quality football. But then the way that this line has moved has got me rethinking, that's too many points for the Bills to be covering versus anyone. The Bills are not a good football team. When they get wins, we've seen, other than you throw out that weird Vikings win, when they've gotten wins, it's been, dogfight, scrape it out, last second field goal, last second goal line stand. Sort of scenario, and the idea that they're going to just steamroll a Dolphins team who's quit, I don't see it. Tannehill is not going to be the Dolphins quarterback next year, but guess what? He's not getting a paycheck unless he puts, leaves, something on tape to tell teams that he's still a competitor, that he deserves a spot on some roster as either fighting for a starting job or a solid backup. So he's got to do something, and. This is a tough test for him against a defense in the Bills that's pretty good. But he's got weapons to throw to. He can do something. Similarly, Adam Gase, I think, is, quietly on a pretty hot seat. They may, let him go if it looks like the team's quit on him. So he's going to have to get something out of this team. All that said, there's not anyone on the Bills that I'm really scared is going to be hitting home run plays that are going to put this game out of reach for the Dolphins, where it's really going to be pack it in at any point in time. This is going to be either a Dolphins win or a tightly contested game with the Bills winning late, the way I look at it. And if you're going to give me 6 points with Miami, I may have to bet this game and watch this game as little as I want to.
I hear that. What do you think about the total?
39. Again, why is it ticking up if Buffalo is expected to be the right side here? I don't get it. But if Buffalo is going to dominate, it's going to be because their defense smothers the Dolphins early, and they score enough points to kind of keep them at arm's length. I don't see how this turns into a shootout by any stretch of the imaginations. And 40 points in a Bills game is a shootout. I mean, there's really there's really a focus there and a run first approach and kind of controlling the clock. And, it's going to be tough to get that over. And, who's lining up and putting their hard earned money on a Bills over in week 17 against the Dolphins is beyond me.
Yeah, I think your call on Tannehill is very interesting. And it was close to moving me over in that direction. And then Dan Kelly says, like the Hurricanes playing in Yankee Stadium, Miami gets crushed. And that's obviously what the market thinks. Man, this is a tricky week. Let's move on to Raiders at Chiefs. Open Chiefs minus 13.5. Pretty much stayed there. There's a couple 14s out there. Total opened at 53.5. It's dropped slightly to 52.5. Couple 52s. The Chiefs can secure home field advantage throughout the playoffs. They have to win. They will be 12-4, finish with the best record in the AFC. Spencer Ware, practicing in full for Week 17, looks ready to return after sitting out the last two games with an injured hamstring. He will be sharing reps with Damian Williams. Whale Capper, Raiders at Chiefs. What are you thinking here?
This was another easy stay away. This is a classic letdown spot from the Raiders. They're off of a short week, winning their Super Bowl, the grand finale in Oakland. That was a fun game to be a part of. Maybe some people get caught up in how exciting that was to see them win on Christmas Eve the way they did against a team that was considered relatively good as of a week ago. Maybe there's some support out there for Raiders at plus 13, but they're not catching my money this week. No way, no how. Kansas City has a bye next week. There's really not any super serious incentive for them to, take out key players as we go down the stretch here. I wouldn't necessarily expect them to put their foot on the Raiders' throat and have Pat Mahomes chucking it in the fourth quarter just to get stats. But he's close to some records, and he's definitely in the driver's seat for the MVP. But another kind of 300-yard, 4 touchdown performance here clearly cements him as the MVP, if you ask me. So they may try to put points on the board here, which. All this is leading me to saying, if you're the kind of person that plays teasers and you can tease the Chiefs across a couple key numbers, then that makes a ton of sense to me. And maybe the over is a decent look here too, because we know the Raiders defense is not as good as they looked on Monday Night Football. So this could be a game where you see some points scored and we see a final 35-21 or something like that, and it's pretty close on the spread. I think the intention here is to get Raiders money at plus 13, and that's a trap in my mind.
Yeah, I think that's a sound breakdown, Whale Capper. Tomor says Raiders offense looks decent. I'd lean over. Interesting. Very, very interesting. And a lot of people thinking that Miami will get crushed. Shout out to Joe Yurkovich. Shout out to my man Mikey D for all the kind things you guys are saying about this show. It means a lot to us. Brandon Lugo says, after last week, Gruden says it feels good to win their last game. Raiders will walk out of the locker room, and that is about it. Donnie, Raiders at Chiefs. What are you thinking here?
I agree with that sentiment there, because it's one of those football games where they're in their last game in Oakland. I don't really know what that means or where they're going to play next year, San Diego, Pac Bell, AT&T Park, wherever. But it's one of those games where Derek Carr circles. They all take their victory lap. They go into the locker room, and Gruden's like, all right, folks, one more versus Kansas City. And half the team goes, shit, we got a game next week? I thought this was it, man. They are checked out. Oakland is absolutely checked out. Now, for the one thing that you like about Andy Reid is Andy Reid's seen him for many, many years in Philadelphia. He is a huge proponent of getting his teams rest. Now, of course, he wants to win this football game. You get the number one seed, you get the bye week. And he's a great, usually football coach after a bye, knows how to handle that. But also in this football game, I think it's one of those games where he senses the urgency early and says, let's put this team away. They don't want to be here. put them away early. So it's minus 7.5 in the first half. I would be shocked if Kansas City isn't up double digits. And I mean one of those games where it's 13 minutes and 48 seconds on the clock and Kansas City's already up 7-0. One of those, let's get the party started. Let's run them out of here. Let's make them quit. And then I even want to put my starters on the bench by the start of the fourth quarter and not have any problem. Which leads me to believe if they're up 21 points midway through the fourth quarter, I'm not messing around with 14 points going to lose the cover. This is one of those where you get out quick at home. Arrowhead's going to be electric. There was no shame in losing last week. You weren't in a must-win situation like Seattle was. You end up losing that football game, but you were competitive. You knew you can come home and take care of business. I think they get out really fast, double digits at the half. I love Kansas City first half here.
That is the shining light through this card so far. Hearing you break that down, that makes a ton of sense. Chiefs first half, Donnie. I really like that. Legan says Chiefs only won 3 times by 14-plus points. Week 5 versus Jacksonville, Week 7 versus Cincinnati, and Week 9 versus Browns. Doubt KC will win by 14-plus. I really like that play, Donnie. That's the first play so far on this card where I thought, man, that is bang on. Chiefs first half. Great breakdown, guys. Let's move on to Eagles at Redskins. You know how much we all enjoy hearing Donnie break down these Eagles games. Open Eagles -7. Now a mix of -7s and -6.5. Total open at 42. It's pretty much stayed there, but Pinnacle's hanging at 41.5. The Eagles need the Vikings to lose to the Bears to have a chance at the postseason. If the Vikings lose to the Bears, all Philadelphia has to do is beat up this beaten up Redskins team. This team is just dealing with injury after injury after injury all season long. We know that Wallace is going to be out for Week 17, and we also know that Donnie can give us the latest info on what's going on with this Eagles squad. It seems like things are rolling. It seems like Foles is playing great football. Are the Eagles going to cover this easily, Donnie?
No, the Eagles are not going to cover this. The Eagles will win this football game, but they're not going to cover it easily. I like the Eagles last week, had the Eagles, bet the Eagles. I thought they were in a great spot versus Houston, and now I think they're still in a pretty good spot, but let's take a look at what the Eagles' MO is over the year, right? Look at last week. Absolutely dominated Houston. You're up 13 points late in that football game with the football and second and down from midfield about to break the back of Houston, and you drop the football on the ground, and then Jim Schwartz goes into us. We know you're going to score defense, but we're going to try to slow you down, which never works, which means we want you to slow down. So instead of scoring in 40 seconds, you score in 55 seconds. They collapsed and almost lost the game, which leads me into believe with this. If you're going to lay 7, and it's still a division game, it's still on the road, I think the Eagles are going to win, but I don't want to be caught in Jim Schwartz's we're up double digits late. I don't care if you score on this drive because laying 7 means you better be up 14 to at least get a push. Eagles win this football game, but if it's 7, I don't think they cover here, Jimmy, but I do think they win.
Wow, interesting breakdown. What are you thinking about this total?
Total in this game, I mean, you're looking at what, 41.5? It's so low. Now, in the last football game, you saw the Eagles absolutely murk the Washington Redskins, but that had every bit to do with, Colt McCoy being in the football game and then going away to Mark Sanchez, who you saw the following week versus the Giants. Shouldn't even be in football at this point. They're getting a little bit of spark from Johnson at quarterback, but I do think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring. I think Washington's going to come to play on defense. I think the Eagles can hold this offensive effort down. I wouldn't bet the under, but I think it's leaning towards the under this type of game.
Interesting breakdown. Tasha Mayhew says, I believe the Eagles will cover. Foles is coming in prepared. My man Triple Beams joining us. Tomarino Tomar says, Foles is playing well, but now he has to go on the road against a solid defense. Tomar is saying this team has rallied around the Eagles, but this is the first good defense Foles has faced this year. Casey Koenig says, Mahomes MVP last stand. Oh, about the Chiefs game. Sorry. And then Nico says, love the Skins at +7.5. And Tasha also liking the under 41. Whale Capper, what are you thinking here? Are you backing what Donnie's saying?
It makes sense to me. And at this point, I got to start listening a little bit more closely to his opinions about the Philadelphia Eagles. Really, the last 12 months have been kind of an extended Nick Foles picking my pocket. I'm going to say I'm on like an 0-5 run betting against Nick Foles, maybe more even. Maybe if it goes back even to his previous stints before he was an Eagles backup. I just can't win against this guy. I don't know if it's personal. I don't know if I did something to him in another lifetime, but whatever the case is, if I pick a side on this one, it will be guaranteed to lose. So I guess for the listeners, I'm not actually going to bet this, but I'll say Eagles cover this one. and you can do with that information whatever you will. And as far as the total goes, I agree with Donnie. The under is a decent look here. And this is another one I have circled to see if this one's out of hand at halftime. You could see a nice, if it's on pace to go over, especially, you might see a nice looking second half number to bet under. And to give that one a little bit more flesh, we generally see second half totals week 17 around 21, and they've been coming in on average about 19. So those are the key numbers that I tend to look for. I'm not betting anything under 19. And if you're giving me a second half total in the 21 to 23 range, then and the game's out of hand, then that's a nice looking number for me.
Interesting breakdown. And the more I think about it, I'm a little bit surprised of Donnie's angle here, but I love hearing it. My man Jay Ryan, also in Philly, says Eagles ride, baby. This is too easy. Casey Koenig says this Eagles team has looked fired up. This is their grand finale, and Foles is trying to show his worth. Very interesting. Tasha Mayhew's final score, Philly 26, Redskins 9. This is very, very interesting. Very interesting. And we know this Redskins team is just getting no offense at all. League and Lee saying Redskins have only scored 16 points or less in the last 4 weeks. Interesting game. Very interesting breakdown. Let's move on to Browns at Ravens. Open Ravens -6.5. Now mostly -5.5. Some 5s. Browns 2-5 on the road, but a nice season. 7-1. Ravens 5-2 at home and looking good. If the Ravens win, they'll be in the playoffs and win the AFC North. Browns have gone 5-2 since firing Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley. Remember this game the last time these two played, 12-9 in overtime, but that was two completely different football clubs, especially Joe Flacco being behind center for the Ravens, throwing the ball 56 times, 5.3 yards an attempt. We won't see that. We talked a little bit early on this show about Denzel Ward having a concussion, being out for week 17, and how his absence may not matter that much because Lamar Jackson renders the team's wideouts useless. Whale Capper, why don't we start out with you, Browns at Ravens?
And this one is one that you want to watch, not just for this week, not just for the way that the importance of this one as far as shaping the AFC this year, but really shaping the AFC North for years to come. I mean, we get the chance to see Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield start out what will likely be a very interesting long-term rivalry. And I completely understand everyone out there who grabbed a great-looking number with the Browns earlier in the week. I think it's bet down to, 6-ish or so. 6.5. If you got a 6.5 in your pocket or a 7, you are really looking good in this one. The Browns continue to take early money, and if you kind of caught that trend and have been capturing that closing line value just by backing the Browns, then you're doing darn well over the last half of this season. And this is probably another game where it sets up where they're going to be very competitive. My strongest angle on this one is going to be the under. Give me the under here all day long. This is by far the toughest defense that the Browns have had to face in their stretch of success over the last half of this season. I don't think they match up particularly well against the Ravens defense. What they like to do, they're going to, Mayfield is going to have a really tough time finding open receivers. He's going to have to get through his progressions extremely quickly to avoid the pass rush. Where the Ravens are coming at you around the edges is where the Cleveland offensive line is especially susceptible. They're great up the middle, but they can be beat on the edge. And I think that the Ravens defense is going to get after him big time and make it a very uncomfortable day for him in the pocket. So the question is, can Baker Mayfield complete passes on the run out of the pocket into coverage? I'm going to bet no on that. And in doing so, the under makes a perfect play to me because I think Ravens can do a nice job of controlling the ball, running the ball well. Browns are, susceptible to the rushing attack. Lamar Jackson is doing this beautiful thing where he's running 3 yards of running attempt, and then he'll finally find his opening and rip off a 50-yarder. It's cool to watch. It's different. He ought to be getting more consideration for Rookie of the Year, in my opinion, because he's not doing the traditional passing attack. People are kind of, under appreciating what we've seen out of him coming in and kind of rescuing this Ravens team that was looking, like they were going to be eliminated relatively early from the playoff race, to then kind of capturing the AFC North is just, awesome. I hope for his sake and for the sake of Ravens fans that they don't choke on this one like we saw them choke in week 17 last year, that cost me some coin, man. I had some huge propositions on Ravens to make the playoffs when they were not expected to last year, and them choking against the Bengals in week 17 is still kind of a bad taste in my mouth. But under here, I think it's a strong play. I feel like this one ends in the 17-16, 17-14 range with the Ravens squeaking out a win.
Wow, I like that breakdown quite a bit. Dan Kelly joining us has had an exceptional read on these Browns this year. He's had these Browns on the money line in big dog situations, big home dog situations. He says Cleveland preparing for this game like it is the Super Bowl, a massive effort to finish the season with the win. This is an atypical, meaningless game. Tee times in Florida for Monday are not tolerated. He's on the Browns money line. Very interesting. Donnie Wrightside, I can't wait to hear your breakdown on this spot. Browns at Ravens.
Yeah. A lot of Baker Mayfield love, and rightfully, look, they have 7 wins. Say it again. The Cleveland Browns actually have 7 wins and could end the season with a winning year. That is outrageous to even think about. Shows you how poor of a football coach that Hugh Jackson was and how much talent they actually have on that team. But we're looking at some interesting spots here, especially with numbers. We talked about it last week, Jimmy, the past couple weeks. Where do you like those Baltimore Ravens? You like them being the underdog, the slimy underdog, getting 3, 4, 5, or 6 just to hang around in ball games. They showed they can do that. And then you want them covering the double digits because they showed they have, but sort of doing it in different ways. Special teams touchdown, a defensive touchdown. Depending on what line you got versus Tampa Bay when they played them at home in the rain, you probably didn't get that cover, but they won by 8 and won by more than a touchdown. Which brings me to my next point here when we're looking at the Cleveland Browns. I love what the Cleveland Browns are doing, but can we just take a step back and actually view what they're actually doing? If we look on the season-long total, the last time they played Baltimore, 10-7, 10-7 was the date, but 12-9 is the final. When we talk about leveling up in competition, because the Baltimore Ravens are an elite football team, playing with some of the best defense you're going to see and opportunistic on offense. They played the Chargers and got slaughtered. They played the Pittsburgh Steelers, got slaughtered. They played the Kansas City Chiefs, they got slaughtered. They played the Houston Texans, and they got slaughtered. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, we beat Atlanta at home, a dome team. Cincinnati falling apart. Carolina with a one-armed quarterback. Denver can't get out of their way. And then Cincinnati again. Wins are wins in the NFL. I understand that. But when rubber meets the road and you got some massive resistance on the road against a team that knows their fans frothing at the mouth. They can't wait to get out there, win, and we're in. There's something to be said about that team versus a team that's saying, let's get fired up. Hey, this team left Cleveland. Now we can go beat. There's nothing to that in the locker room. They're professionals. These kids weren't even born when these teams are moving back and forth on teams. They don't give a damn about that. It's the Ravens or nobody in this game. I think the Ravens can win this by a touchdown or more. I think they'll be geeked up and geared up in this one. But credit the Browns for the season that they've had. But every time they've leveled up, they've gotten rocked by a good defense.
What do you think of Whale Capper's read on the total, liking the under?
Yeah, look, if I'm going to play the Baltimore Ravens, nothing about the Ravens has me feeling really good about an over regardless of the number. What do they want to do? Shut you down on defense. What do they want to do on offense? Pick up first downs as opposed to scoring touchdowns. That's a stone-cold under type line. But you also need an offense like the Cleveland Browns who have the capacity to move the football because contrary to popular belief, 3 and outs are not very good for the over-under because you punt within a minute and a half and the other team's getting good field position. Baker Mayfield's good enough to move the football downfield, but that staunch Ravens defense isn't just going to let you go, hey, we're at the 50-yard line. They're going to put the clamps on you and hope that you punt it down deep. They always play to the under for me. So I'm never looking to take an over with the Baltimore Ravens.
I love this breakdown. Love this breakdown quite a bit. A lot of people liking the Ravens here. Matt Meadows says Ravens won't go down that Bengals road like last year. This is a different team with new systems in place. Win and get a home playoff game and win the AFC North. And Ray Lewis will be there. A lot of people liking this Ravens team. But
Ray Lewis.
But Dan Kelly's not alone. Roger says, what up, guys? Mayfield torching the Ravens, baby. And Pitt gets in, and me and Jimmy the Bag get to go to Spearmint Rhino for drinks and lap dances. That sounds pretty good to me, Roger. And Dan Kelly says, oh, my God, I love it when everyone is vehemently on the other side of me. I might have to double down. Absolutely love that. Great breakdown, guys. Let's keep rolling. Bengals at Steelers. Open Steelers minus 16.5. Now minus 14.5. A couple 14s. Total opened at 48. Now 45.5 across the board. Antonio Brown, questionable. Held out of practice. Said he's undergoing tests on his injured knee. We know if he does play, he can light up one of the league's worst secondaries. James Conner, questionable. Although he's listed as questionable, full participant in practice throughout the week and fully expected to return on Sunday. Listen, the Steelers need to do something here. I can't believe they're sitting here at 8-6-1, but this is so many points. I have to think that the Bengals could keep it within 14 or 14.5 here, especially with the injuries that the Steelers are feeling. Why don't we start with you, Whale Capper? Bengals at Steelers.
The Steelers, they got jobbed last week. I haven't heard a whole ton of commentary on this, but boy, that game was there for the taking in New Orleans, and the way it was refereed down, in a couple of key moments of that game was really a shame. Take that game away from them, take them out of the playoffs effectively. Unless the Browns pull off a miracle for them, they will be watching the playoffs, which is good for all the other AFC teams, I guess, because the Steelers were not a team that you necessarily wanted to draw, especially if you're the likes of the Patriots, I guess. But I'll say this: the Bengals are a disaster. Their future is an enormous question mark. They don't have a quarterback. They don't have a coach. And they have a huge lack of talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary. I think the Steelers picked their number here. I think this game goes under the total. This has the makings of a 33-0 kind of a game. I don't think Steelers are happy about where they sit. And I think they're going to take a little bit of their anger out on the Bengals in this one. If this goes over the total, it's because the Steelers took it over themselves. The defense for the Steelers matches up very, very well with this whatever iteration, whatever the Bengals are doing right now. Anyone's guess. But this is a Steelers. Maybe they make for a fine teaser leg probably. The under is probably the only pregame bet I would place. But this is another one I got starred for. If this is well in hand at halftime, this is a nice look for another second half under.
Interesting. Tasha Mayhew says Bengals plus 14.5. Love it. Nico says stay away. Don't know what to expect from both teams. Tomar says I'd lean under. Pitt will want to run, shorten the game to avoid injuries. Brandon Lugo says the Bengals IR is better than their active team. Donnie Rightside, Bengals at Steelers. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, Cincinnati's a mess. Cincinnati's an absolute mess. I want no part of them in this football game. But having said that, do you want a part of them at 14.5 where they might be able to come back? Maybe the best thing that you could look at last week is the fact that Cincinnati got plugged, but still ends up coming back at the end of the football game, scores a meaningless touchdown, gets a 2-point conversion. But then on the back play, David Njoku goes down the field, gets tackled at the 3-yard line. Maybe it's a little bit different if you see them get plugged by double digits because they're going to get whacked in this football game. And it's another one of those games where I sort of lean toward the first half because if you are a Steeler backer right now, and if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, there's one motivational tool you have. You're really worried about what's going to happen in that Baltimore game. But you know what you have to do first? You got to secure your game. You got to level the boom. Mike Tomlin is an awful coach, and it's amazing to think he gets a lot of support nationally. But when you look at this football, they're going to miss the playoffs with a absolutely bone-crushing pass rush, a good secondary, a Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the best offensive lines in football, and probably the best 1-2 combination at wide receiver. It's outrageous. And you know why? It's specifically because their head coach either A, can't get them up for a football game or fake punts to literally lose the game on purpose in New Orleans on a game they absolutely had to have. He punts that football, they win the football game, but they lost. But Mike Tomlin's going to sit there and he's going to say, it's on me at the press conference, and nothing is ever going to change. So I think they'll be ultra aggressive in the first half, going for everything under the sun. 2-point conversions galore in this game. They're going to try to run it up. So in the second half, they can actually focus on the scoreboard to see what happens here. Minus 9.5. There's no way this. Look, if the Steelers are 3 points at the half, just buckle Mike Tomlin and send him packing already. If this team doesn't show a propensity to come out and absolutely close the door like 21-3 style in the first half, they're done anyway. So I want the first half. I want to see what the Steelers are because if they come out lackluster, they're not covering the 14.5. If they're up 21-3 at the half, there's a good chance they'll cover, but maybe they don't need to. Maybe they rest because who knows? Maybe the Cleveland Browns are up in their football game, 2 touchdowns over the Ravens, and they say, hey, look, let's pull everybody back and get some rest. I want the Steelers first half. They'll be up double digits. And if they're not, Tomlin should just be fired before the next half even begins.
I like that breakdown a lot. Steelers first half does make a lot of sense. Right now, Chiefs first half, Steelers first half, both those plays make a lot of sense to me. Mikey D says Tomlin is Lombardi compared to Vance Joseph here in Colorado. Tomor says Bengals are still playing hard even though the team sucks. Harry Smith says take the under. Love the Bengals 14. Tolkien says Tomlin versus Lewis, the Dumbo. The Dumbo from Tolkien. Okay, let's keep rolling. Bears at Vikings. Open Vikings minus 4.5. Stayed. Total opened at 41. Almost all 40.5s. 40 just hit the board. Vikings are currently in the 6th seed in the NFC playoff race, and they'll get in if they can beat these Bears at home on Sunday. Now, Chicago sort of has something to play for as well. If on the off chance the 49ers beat the Rams, Bears will have a chance at the 2nd seed in the NFC and the first round bye. Robinson, doubtful. Bears are still in position for this first round bye, but it's starting to look like they will be resting starters. Aaron Lynch, elbow. Safety Eddie Jackson, ankle. They all missed practice this week and are not expected to play. When I first saw this line, I thought, man, I think the Bears can stay within 4.5. And the more I look at this game and the more questions surrounding the starters, I think the Vikings may be the play here. Why don't we start with you, Whale Capper? Bears at Vikings.
This one's really tough. And the Bears, Nagy and company, they are in a very, very difficult situation. Do you let the Vikings into the playoffs, and then face this team next week knowing that they can rally around the motivation of this team is not scared. They disrespected us by, letting us into the playoffs. They want to play us, right? That's not a good situation to be in. Your alternative is you play hard, you get more beat up, you don't get a bye, and then you draw the white-hot Philadelphia Eagles and Nick Foles, whatever magic he has in his pocket. And that's not a great situation to be in. If I'm the Bears, I clearly want to play the Vikings, but I want to get in and out of this game without taking in injuries, without getting exhausted, without giving away any strategy or gamesmanship, but also without giving them some sort of a chip on their shoulder before you play them next week. It's going to be extremely interesting to see how they handle all this. My guess is that things aren't going to work out. Vikings defense is going to look good early, and they're going to be down at halftime, and then they're going to pack it in. That's kind of leans towards looking for a play on the Vikings here, but it's pretty weak confidence, and I would look for an under because this Vikings defense in Minnesota they smother teams. And a team like the Bears, if they're not going 100%, you could see something where they come out of here with 10-ish points. So this is a Vikings lean and an under lean in for me, but a lot of this is speculating on how the Bears are going to handle this, and I don't really know that I know that.
Yeah, very interesting. I like the breakdown. Tom Marino says Bears let Vikings win, then destroy them in the playoffs at home. Donnie Rightside, Bears at Vikings.
Yeah, I think whoever the Bears get, they're going to be able to win their first game at Soldier Field. I love my Philadelphia Eagles, but give Nick Foles a little bit of wind and freezing cold conditions. We've seen that play out, and it's not a pretty sight going against a nasty defense. So whether or not what happens, I don't think it matters. But let's get to the game and the point of what matters in this game. Minnesota Vikings are going to win this football game. Even if the Bears were playing full go, the Minnesota Vikings would still win this football game. Now you're going to have a little bit, which is very rare in the NFL, where you might get a free roll on the Minnesota Vikings. And you say, well, wait a minute. The Bears are saying they're starting. They're going to play their starters. Their top wide receiver is not even going to suit up for this football game. Lynch is out, and Eddie Jackson we already knew was going to be out. But here's the problem that you're going to have in this football game, because there's a really good scenario that you might actually be playing this football game the next week. So that special play that we've been working on with Tariq Cohen on 3rd and 4, are you rolling it out on this game that technically doesn't mean that much for you? Absolutely not. Are you dialing up nasty red zone plays to put them on tape for the very next week that you might play the same football team in this? No. But you know who is going to be dialing up their absolute best stuff? That's the Minnesota Vikings, because It's win or go home, basically, in this game. I mean, obviously, if the Eagles lose, it's not going to matter. But you're getting your full go effort out of the Minnesota Vikings in this game. You have contingency plans built in for the Chicago Bears that are saying, hey, we'll see what happens at the half. You're already out of this football game. Tell your employees, we'll see what happens if you can go home early tomorrow. They already think they're going home early. So when you say, no, you guys got to stay the extra 2 hours and work a full day, oh, man, I didn't even think we were going to be doing that. Are you playing Khalil Mack in the fourth quarter when the game might be wrapped up? Are you playing Tariq Cohen? Are you playing your starter, Mitchell Trubisky? No. Why would you expend all your energy in this football game only to play the same team next week? If you're really smart and really ahead of the curve at Nagy, you basically throw a layup here and say, hey, Minnesota, have at it. Run up and down the field on us. Maybe you lose a starter or two in this game and you're exhausted. We'll take our bye week this week and then smoke you at home next week. That's the way I would do it. But I know people say, well, wait a second. What happens if the Rams end up losing to the 49ers? Yes. Did you just hear what I said? The Rams aren't losing to the 49ers. So it's a very minimal edge that you're going to get in this game. Take your bye week now, play it smart, get some offensive efficiency in the first half, and take the second half off and let Minnesota burn some energy when you're going to club them in the head the very next week in Chicago in home. Don't worry about it. Minnesota by a touchdown or more here. It's not that hard. One team doesn't need this game and is already checking out saying, well, we'll keep an eye on the score. You already lost anyway. Minnesota wins this game regardless.
I think that's a great call. Also, Mikey D saying, is this another first half play perhaps? Would you prefer having the full game to take care of business because the Bears will rest players in the second half?
Yes, free roll. Yep, you might get a free roll. You might get a fourth quarter free of about 10 or 11 starters that are key. Wouldn't it be nice in the fourth quarter if the game's tied up 17-17 and there's no Khalil Mack, no Danny Trevathan, no Fuller at cornerback? It's a lot easier to score in that environment. Or how about on offense if you're trying to get a last stop and it's Chase Daniel out there handing off to the fourth string running back and no wide receivers? Come on. You might get a free roll in the NFL. It's so rare that it happens.
Oh, I think that's a great breakdown. The Vikings are a key to this week. I like it. We got to be quick for these next 3 games, and then we can spend a little bit more time on the Colts and Titans. Let's be quick here. Chargers at Broncos. Open Chargers -6.5. Still pretty much there. Mix 6.5s and 6s. Total open at 41.5. You can still get it. There are 42s out there. Vance Joseph has confirmed Lindsey will undergo wrist surgery. Done for the season. Done for 4 to 6 months. Will Capper, let's start with you. Chargers at Broncos.
This one is another one why I've started look for a second half under. I think the Chargers put this one away with a 10-minute drive in the third quarter or fourth quarter at some point, and we don't see a whole heck of a lot of points overall. My dream scenario is the Chargers are up like 14-10 at halftime and they hang a 23 or something as the second half total, and they couldn't make that second half total low enough. I'm going under on that one. This is probably too many points to be laying on the road in division. This is Denver's home finale, and to some degree, they seem to be playing for Vance Joseph. So maybe you get a decent college effort out of these guys, but they just don't have the playmakers and the healthy bodies right now to compete with the Chargers team that I think would love to get right on the eve of the playoffs and should win by 7 to 10 points.
Yeah, I like that breakdown. What are you thinking, Donnie? Chargers at Broncos.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you see the line because there's a lot going. Like Denver just got embarrassed on Christmas Eve. They didn't even want to be there. Their head coach is going to be fired at the end of the year. There's no more play one. Like, are you really going to give the extra effort for your head football coach or defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator when nobody's going to be there next year? It's almost one of those like, I'm going out to the bar tonight. Why? Because I have a substitute teacher the next day and we don't have to take a test. That's exactly the way you would play it. I get they're at home. I get they're going to be excited. They're already anemic on offense. Then you take their best player away from them again. And how much of a game plan is Vance Joseph putting in this week? You know he's sitting in his chair right now, already know he's fired. Is he burning the midnight oil for one last win against the Chargers? And does his team even care at this point? Chargers are nobody for me here.
Yeah, that is interesting. Andre Kovalenko also liking Chargers first half. -3.5. And my man Gokster in the house says, we hate the Chargers like no other. Big Broncos fan. Mr. Gokster, love that guy. Let's go Cardinals at Seahawks. Let's make this quick. Open Seahawks -13.5. Now you can get anywhere from 12.5 to 13.5. Total opened at 40. Now 38.5 across the board. Know you're a West Coast guy, Whale Capper. Any lean here? Cardinals at Seahawks.
Yeah, this is one of those that I play and just don't even watch and cross my fingers. I'm going to bet on the 32nd best team the 32nd best team with a bullet. I'm going to back them in week 17 with nothing to play for. It's too many points. I don't even think that I can't even construct a scenario where Seattle wants to win by more than 14 points. Seattle is depleted on some of the key parts of their offensive line. I don't expect those guys to be active. So much of their offense runs through their running attack, and if they're missing interior linemen who aren't creating holes and lanes for sort of the power style running they like to do, then they're going to have a tough time moving the ball. God knows why. The Cardinals players love Steve Wilkes. They want him to be afforded a second year as a head coach. Doesn't look like it's going to happen, but they're playing hard for him. And 13.5 is just too many for a game that I think ends at or a little under a pretty low total. And so if you're asking me, are they going to pull out some stops and, score 14 points probably gets you this cover for the Cardinals, which is crazy to say, but 13.5 points is too many. I'm going to grab the points here. And like I said, this is one that I will not be watching. I'll just check the final score and see if I was correct or very, very stupid.
I hear that. Nick O, liking Seahawks minus 14, says Cardinals throw in the towel. Donnie Rightside, Cardinals at Seahawks.
It's such a weird game because this team has really nothing to play for, Seattle, and they're going to hang almost 2 touchdowns out there. But that shows you how crazy and sly of a fox that their head football coach, Pete Carroll, is. Because he's the only guy that cares about every scenario about winning means more than everything. Even if it means I might lose Russell Wilson, I might lose Doug Baldwin, I might lose Bobby Wagner in this game, but it's so important to compete every single week and play it down to the bone. It's why in the preseason, they're an absolute favorite every week by every gambler because Pete Carroll has no problems beating you 45-3 in the preseason because it's all about competition. This game scares the hell out of me because, again, we look at that price point of the Arizona Cardinals. No matter who's out there playing against them on defense, can they get to 14 points? Which half the time I just don't think they can, even if they were playing 7-on-7 football. But there's something that says maybe Pete just is going to finally buck to that trend and say, hey, guys, let's have a really good first half. And I can't afford to have Russell Wilson. If Russell Wilson twists his ankle, they get blown out by anybody in the playoffs because that's how important he is to this offense. I just can't see him saying, let's continue to run read option with our, Chris Carson in the backfield and Russell Wilson keeping the football and Doug Baldwin, who barely is out there through tape and just being stuck together just to get out, to be playing in the third and fourth quarter. It doesn't make sense. So I agree with Will Capper. I actually think Arizona does get blown out, but I'm going to take sanity and say in the fourth quarter, if it's a double-digit game that even Seattle is up, he can't have Russell Wilson out there because even if he doesn't make any other change to that football team but take Russell Wilson out, Arizona's going to cover that line. But I have some sneaky suspicion it's like 41-10 in the fourth quarter. And Russell Wilson with his 6th touchdown of the day. It's like, what is Pete doing out there? It's a weird one, but every sense of me says just take the 14 and sit it out because he can't play him in the fourth quarter, can he?
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I like that breakdown quite a bit. Let's just quickly touch on Niners and Rams and spend a little time on Colts Titans. We have to be out of here in 6 minutes. Niners at Rams. Open Rams -7. Now anywhere from -9.5 to -10.5. Total open at 50. Now 48.5 across the board. Whale Capper, you have any feel here? Niners at Rams.
Yeah, I think the Niners cover this number. I like that they're playing pretty hard down the stretch here. I like that Nick Mullins matches up pretty well against this defense, which has enormous holes. There's nothing really positive going right, that can really, paint a rosy picture for the Rams right now. I know they just, had an ass whooping, they handed out an ass whooping last week, but this is a different football team that's playing a hell of a lot harder. And I think the Niners I don't think they're live for an upset. But if you're going to give me 10 points on a team that's playing hard at the end of the season, I would look for that. I'm not actually going to bet this game, but if there's only, if there's a side or total that sticks out pregame, it's Niners and taking the points.
Yeah, I like that breakdown. Quickly, any feel on the total?
I guess I would look over. I don't have a ton of respect for the Niners defense, and the Rams defense is horrific. The Niners left a lot of points on the field last week against the Bears. That was the best defense in the NFL. They're going to find a lot more room this week. Greg Kittle could have a nice stat line in this game. I just think this is like a 31-28 kind of game. Over is a nice look.
Yeah, that's an interesting spot. Lagan saying San Francisco lost by 18 and 27 points their last 2 road games. Sorry to rush you here, Donnie, but quickly, do you have any feel here on Niners at Rams?
Yep, real quick, another one. Love the first half for the Los Angeles Rams because you might get that free roll in the 49ers in the second half getting 10 points where the Rams might pull all their starters based on what happens in that Minnesota Vikings football game. So keep that in mind. But I want no piece of the 49ers if you're not going to give me, Marquise Goodwin's out for the game, Matt Breida's out for the game, and Dante Pettis. Where are you going with that football team unless you get some backups being in the game for the Los Angeles Rams in the second half? I want the Rams first half. That's it. Because, again, you might get bitten that bug saying, hey, we're up 14 points, and everybody comes out of the football game because, again, it doesn't matter. They've already clinched that seeding. First half Rams.
Like it. Now we have a game that does mean something to Sunday nighter. Colts at Titans. Open Colts -2.5. Now -3.5. Total open at 45. Now 43.5 across the board. Colts and Titans play-in game. Whatever team wins gets into the playoffs. If they tie, they'll both be eliminated. If the Texans lose to the Jaguars, the winner of that Colts-Titans game will take the AFC South crown. Very interesting stuff. Last time the Colts and Titans played each other, Colts blew them out 38-10. And they'll probably have to do the fight back here, this Titans team, with Blaine Gabbert filling in for Mariota. Mariota, stinger, still questionable. We have to make sure, Vrabel saying, we have to make sure that he can go out there and do the job at a high level. T.Y. Hilton, questionable, but we're pretty sure he is going to be there. Eric Ebron, questionable. He closed out the practice this week with a full session on Friday. He's in the final stages of clearing the league's protocol. He is expected to play. Donnie Rightside, big Sunday nighter, Colts at Titans.
Yeah, look, this is going to be a tough game. I love the Indianapolis Colts, but Ryan Kelly's just been downgraded to out for this football game. That is a massive injury for one of the better young centers in the league that's not going to be participating here. That's going to be a tough one. T.Y. Hilton, look, he's a warrior. He's been playing great. He's still banged up. He's one play away from tripping around that offense struggling. They were dead to rights last week, but it does show a good football team coming back and winning at home in some adverse conditions. But over the past couple weeks, they did beat up Dallas. Dallas was in a bye week situation, which they did, but they still beat them. Closer games. After the Tennessee game, Miami, a close game. Miami had that team dead to rights. They go down to get shut out by Jacksonville. 24-21, close game versus Houston. They beat the Cowboys and then have a barn burner versus the Giants. If you're going to give me a home team and a must-win football game and give me 3.5 or 3, I'm leaning home team. And I love the Indianapolis Colts, but they're really banged up right now.
Wow, interesting breakdown. I loved hearing that. Tomar says Mariota being great on national TV. I think there's value on the Titans, but the Casey injury is huge. Well, we don't even know if Mariota will be there. Larry Savage says take the Colts.
True.
Take the Colts. Whale Capper, Colts at Titans, Sunday Night Football. Who are you liking here?
I hadn't heard that Ryan Kelly news. That's a bummer. I like the Colts in this spot. I like the under in this spot. I like the Titans team total under in this spot. You still have a nice matchup. I feel, even with the replacement center, you still have a nice matchup with some of the big bodies on that offensive line for the Colts against a run defense that's going to be without Jarrell Casey. That's a huge deal. They're going to have they're going to have a very difficult time, stopping the rushing attack from the Colts, which means you potentially get a nice balanced attack from the Colts. They can sustain some drives. They can play a little bit of keep away. And they want to see if, they want to make sure Mariota can perform to a high level. Yeah, well, the only way you're going to find that out is if you trot him out there for the first quarter and you see how he's playing. And to the degree that I don't think you're going to see him be particularly effective because of the way that this injury has kind of, at least the way it's been reported, it sounds more serious than they're making it out to be. And if you're having numbness on the right side of your body, and Mariota has a tendency to float balls as it is, when he's throwing it down the field, he's gonna have that in the back of his mind. He's gonna be reticent to take those kind of chances. They're gonna lean on Derrick Henry pretty heavily. And if we see the same type of performance out of the Colts defense that we've seen the last couple of weeks, then I think they can keep them tamped down in the score sheet. Colts get a win here, probably going to be pretty tight, but give me an under and a Tennessee team total under. I feel like this game ends in the 20-13 Tepper range with the Colts covering barely, but the under coming in nicely.
The under coming in, that's an interesting call. I like it very much. Whale Capper, I haven't even asked you this, but I'm hoping Donnie and I, we are going to keep this show rolling. We've enjoyed it so much through the playoffs. Are you going to be able to continue joining us on Fridays?
I would love nothing more.
All right. I love hanging with you, Whale Capper. You are a great guy and a great capper. Before Donnie puts a bow on this bad boy, can you give some love to all the great commenters, all the great cappers here, giving us great info, bringing us great humor, and just exciting us to try our best here on this show. Can you give some love to them, my man?
2018 has been a hell of a year. It's been a great year for handicapping NFL football. We wish you guys nothing but the best in the new year, and hope well wishes both to you guys as well as everyone watching at home. This has been a ton of fun, and hope that 29 is just as successful.
Oh, I love that, Whale Capper. And before we send it off to Donnie, you guys truly mean the world to us. Thank you for joining us. And right now, I'm going to be doing a live parlay show immediately. Right now, 44.5% ROI on my parlays this year. Every week I put one out in NFL. 44.5% ROI. Feels pretty good. And I'll be doing a live show, so stick around with me. Donnie, my man, it is a treat and honor to work with you. Can you put a bow on this bad boy and send us in to 2019?
Yeah, 17 weeks on the show. What a lot of fun. It goes by really quickly. And I like to say the best is going to be held for last, because if you think we can put together an hour-and-a-half show with a full card, wait till you see the hour-and-a-half show when we have like 1 or 2 games to go over and put an hour-and-a-half effort into these games. But just to be serious, thanks again to the chat box. You guys support us all year long. Hopefully we'll be back next year for another extended run as well throughout the regular season with the Audible. Jimmy's been a fantastic host, upbeat every single week. Whale Capper's been sensational, popping in from tropical locations, giving that mysterious look to us there. I've met both of these guys in person. They're great people. The same thing that appears to you on camera, that's exactly the way they are to you. Very cordial in person as well. Everybody worked hard behind the scenes. Thank you for joining us here. We'll be back at it. We're going to extend it through the playoffs, hopefully right through the Super Bowl, and have some fun. But it always starts with the chat box. I can't say enough. Thank you for the support of all we do on the channels here. It means a lot to us. For Jimmy the Bag, for Whale Capper, I'm Donnie Rightside. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again next week.
Hey,